A dusty old map inked by hand centuries ago, unrolled on a wooden table under flickering candlelight. As your eyes trace its lines, something impossible leaps out. A continent at the bottom of the world, detailed with rivers, mountains, and coastlines that shouldn't exist. Antarctica, the frozen wasteland we know today, but shown without a trace of ice. No glaciers, no endless white expanse, just green valleys and flowing waters. How could mapmakers from the 1500s know what lay beneath miles of frozen hell? Were they guessing? Or did they have access to knowledge from a time when the world was wildly different, a time 12,000 years ago before the ice claimed its throne? This isn't some wild conspiracy spun in a dark corner of the internet. It's a puzzle that's baffled historians, cartographers, and scientists for generations. Maps like the Piri, Reis, the Oronteus, Finaeus, and the Buch chart seem to peel back the icy veil, revealing a frozen continent as it might have looked in a warmer, ancient era. But how? And what does it mean for our understanding of history? Tonight, we're diving deep into these enigmatic charts, exploring the theories, the evidence, the debunkings, and the lingering mysteries. We'll journey from Ottoman admirals' quarters to modern satellite scans, from ancient legends to cutting-edge geology. By the end, you might just question everything you thought you knew about the bottom of our planet. Our story begins in 1513, in the bustling port city of Constantinople, what we now call Istanbul. The Ottoman Empire is at its zenith, a crossroads of knowledge from Europe, Asia, and Africa. Enter Piri Reis, a legendary admiral and cartographer, nephew to the infamous pirate Kemal Reis. Piri wasn't just a sailor, he was a scholar of the seas, compiling maps from captured Portuguese charts, Arab navigators, and even whispers of Christopher Columbus's voyages. That year, he presents Sultan Selim I with a world map drawn on gazelle skin, vibrant with colors and annotations in Ottoman Turkish. Only a third of the original map survives today, housed in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace Museum. It shows the Atlantic coast with remarkable accuracy for the time, Spain, Africa, the Americas looking surprisingly modern. But it's the bottom edge that drops jaws. There, stretching eastward from South America, is a landmass that looks eerily like Antarctica's Queen Maud land. Rivers snake through valleys, mountains rise in places that match modern subglacial topography, and crucially no ice. The coast is drawn as if the frozen sheet we know today simply isn't there. Piri himself notes in the margins that he based this on 20 older charts and maps, some dating back to Alexander the Great's time, others from Portuguese sources captured in naval battles. He mentions a map from Columbus too, but Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1820 by Russian explorers, and even then it was iced over, the last time Antarctica was ice-free. Geologists say around 34 million years ago, during the Eocene epoch, when the planet was warmer and palm trees grew in Alaska. But Piri's map seems to show it as it might have looked much more recently, perhaps 12,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. Enter Charles Hapgood, a Harvard-educated historian who in the 1950s revived interest in the Piri Reis map with his book, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings. Hapgood argued that the map's southern land isn't a distorted South America, as some skeptics claim, but a genuine depiction of Antarctica before the ice. He pointed to the map's projection, a technique that flattens the globe, and suggested it was centered on seeing modern Aswan, Egypt, implying ancient Egyptian origins. More stunningly, Hapgood collaborated with cartographers to overlay the map on modern charts of Antarctica's bedrock, the land beneath the ice. The fit, uncannily close, with rivers aligning to subglacial valleys revealed by 20th century seismic surveys. Hapgood's theory, advanced ancient civilizations, perhaps 12,000 years ago or more, mapped the world during a time when sea levels were lower and Antarctica's coast was navigable. These maps were passed down through libraries like Alexandria, copied by Arab scholars, and eventually reached Piri Reis. It's an idea that echoes Plato's Atlantis, a lost society with global reach, destroyed by cataclysm, their knowledge surviving in fragments. But hold on, skeptics have poked holes. The Antarctica on Piri's map connects to South America, unlike reality where the Drake Passage separates them. Some say it's just a fanciful extension of the Andes or a misdrawn Patagonia. The rivers could be artistic flourishes or guesses based on symmetry. Theories of a southern continent, terra australis incognita, were common since Aristotle. And the accuracy, when you squint and rotate, sure it fits. But science says Antarctica's ice sheet is ancient, stable for at least 15 million years in parts. No way it was ice-free 12,000 years ago without a global meltdown that would have flooded civilizations worldwide. Yet recent discoveries keep the debate alive. In 2023, NASA's Gray satellites and ice-penetrating radar revealed vast subglacial canyons and lakes matching those rivers on Piri's map. A 2024 study in Nature Geoscience mapped ancient river systems under the East Antarctic ice sheet, preserved from a time when the continent was greener, perhaps 34 million years back. But Hapgood proposed crustal displacement, a theory Einstein once entertained, where Earth's outer shell shifts, moving continents into polar zones rapidly, freezing them over. If true, Antarctica could have been temperate much more recently. Now shift to 1531 and another map that amps up the mystery. The Oronteus Finaeus world map drawn by French mathematician Finaeus. This heart-shaped projection shows the world as known then, with Europe and Asia detailed, the Americas sketchy. But at the bottom, a massive southern continent labeled Terra Australis Recentis Inventa sed nondum plene cognita, the recently discovered southern land but not fully known. It's huge, dwarfing Africa with mountains, rivers, and bays that, when compared to modern subglacial maps, align with Antarctica's Gamburtsev Mountains and Prids Bay. Finaeus sources, likely similar to Piri's Portuguese charts, perhaps lost maps from the Vatican or French royal libraries. The map shows Antarctica ringed by ice, but the interior detailed as land, suggesting knowledge of the bedrock. Charles Hapgood again championed this, arguing the map depicts Antarctica during the last interglacial period, around 130,000 to 115,000 years ago, or perhaps as recent as 12,000 years ago if pole shifts occurred. Critics counter that Finaeus was guessing. The southern land was a philosophical necessity for balance, Aristotle's idea that the northern landmasses needed a counterweight. Finaeus' map is riddled with errors. Australia is missing, the Americas fused oddly. The mountains could be copied from imaginary charts, but overlay studies by researchers like John Wyhopt in the 1980s showed statistical matches to Antarctica's coast, with rivers flowing where subglacial meltwater channels exist today. Add the 1737 Buech map by French geographer Philippe Buech. This one shows Antarctica as two islands separated by a sea eerily prescient of the east and west Antarctic ice sheets divided by the Transantarctic Mountains. Buech based it on theory, hypothesizing inland seas to explain icebergs, but some claim it's too accurate. Hapgood suggested Buech had access to ancient sources showing the continent ice-free, with the sea being a melted polar cap. Buech's map notes conjecture sur les terres australes, admitting speculation. But modern bathymetry shows the subglacial bedrock does dip low in places, like the Wilkes subglacial basin, which could flood if ice melted. A 2025 study from the British Antarctic Survey using AI-enhanced radar revealed 85 new subglacial lakes, some active with flowing water, hinting at a dynamic under-ice world that echoes these old maps. So what if these maps are copies of copies, tracing back to a time when Antarctica was habitable? 12,000 years ago marks the Younger Dryas, a sudden cold snap after the last ice age's thaw. Sea levels rose 400 feet as ice melted, perhaps submerging coastal civilizations. Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods posits advanced Ice Age societies mapped the world, their knowledge surviving in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. Evidence: subglacial Lake Vostok, drilled in 2012, holds water isolated for millions of years, with microbial life hinting at preserved ecosystems. 2023 radar found ancient river landscapes under East Antarctica, with valleys and hills from a temperate era. A Nature Communications paper in October 2023 described a 20-mile wide relic landscape, complete with hills and valleys carved by rivers when Antarctica was ice-free. But 12,000 years, core samples show the ice sheet stable for at least 800,000 years, with CO2 levels too low for melting. The ice-free maps might be lucky guesses or based on early whaler reports of southern islands. Yet, anomalies persist. The Piri Reis shows the Falklands and South Georgia accurately, places not charted until later. Finaeus' map has a ring of islands around Antarctica, like the Scotia Arc. Buech's division matches the geological split between East and West Antarctica. In 2025, with climate change melting ice at record rates, we're seeing more. Satellites like IceSat-2 map subglacial features with pinpoint accuracy, revealing canyons that match old map rivers. A July 2025 Phys.org article detailed newly discovered ancient river landscapes controlling ice flow, preserved for millions of years but suggesting a dynamic past. What if ancient seafarers reached Antarctica during a brief warm period? Polynesians navigated the Pacific 1,000 years ago. Could earlier cultures have done the same? Legends of Atlantis describe a southern land of wonders, sunk by catastrophe. Or consider crustal displacement. Earth's poles shift due to imbalance, freezing tropics overnight. Einstein corresponded with Hapgood, noting mathematical feasibility, though geologists dismiss it for lack of evidence. The maps challenge us. If ancient people knew Antarctica's true shape, our timeline is wrong. Civilizations rose and fell before recorded history, their knowledge lost but for these fragments. As Antarctica melts, losing 150 billion tons of ice yearly, the truth may surface. Subglacial exploration with robots like IceFin in 2024 found thriving ecosystems under Thwaites Glacier. What else hides there? Ruins, artifacts. The maps are portals to a forgotten world, a frozen continent 12,000 years ago, teeming with life. They remind us history is ice-thin, and beneath lies the unknown. A fog of time shrouds many secrets, but few are as chilling literally as the enigma of Antarctica. Imagine unrolling a parchment from the 16th century, its edges frayed, ink faded, but still bold in its defiance of logic. There at the bottom of the world is a continent we know as a frozen wasteland, but depicted with lush rivers carving through valleys, mountains rising like sentinels, and coastlines free of the ice that has entombed them for millennia. No glaciers, no endless white void, just land vibrant and accessible as if mapped by someone who walked its shores. This isn't fantasy, it's the Piri Reis map, the Oronteus Finaeus chart, and others like them. Relics that suggest ancient knowledge of a frozen continent 12,000 years ago before the ice claimed it. How could cartographers from centuries past know what lay beneath miles of polar armor? Were they visionaries, lucky guessers, or heirs to a lost civilization's legacy? Tonight, we're embarking on a journey through these mysterious maps, peeling back layers of history, science, and speculation to uncover the truth about Antarctica's hidden past. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride through time, ice, and the unknown. Our tale kicks off in the heart of the Ottoman Empire, 1513. The air in Constantinople is thick with the scent of spices from distant lands, the call to prayer mingling with the clamor of shipyards. Admiral Piri Reis, a swashbuckling navigator with a pirate's pedigree, his uncle was the notorious Kemal Reis, is no stranger to adventure. He sailed the Mediterranean, clashed with European fleets, and collected charts like trophies. That year, he compiles a world map on gazelle skin, a masterpiece presented to Sultan Selim I. It's a synthesis of knowledge. Portuguese captures from the Indian Ocean, Arab star charts, even a map attributed to Christopher Columbus himself. Piri notes in the margins that he drew from 20 sources, including 8 from the time of Alexander the Great. Only the western third survives today, preserved in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace. It shows the Atlantic with stunning precision, Africa's curve, Brazil's bulge, even the Andes snaking southward. But the real jaw-dropper is the bottom, a landmass extending east from South America's tip, labeled with place names like Land of Fire and notes on strange animals. Rivers flow inland, mountains dot the interior, and the coastline twists in ways that mirror Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. Crucially, it's drawn as if ice-free, with bays and inlets that match modern subglacial surveys. Piri's annotations hint at the source. This country is a waste, everything is in ruin, and it is said that large snakes are found here. For this reason, the Portuguese infidels did not land on these shores, and these are also said to be very hot. Snakes in Antarctica, hot shores. Today it's a deep freeze, but 12,000 years ago, during the tail end of the last ice age, global climates were in flux. Sea levels were lower, exposing more land. Could ancient mariners have ventured south? Charles Hapgood, a mid-20th century historian, thought so. In Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, 1966, he argued the Piri Reis map depicts Antarctica's bedrock, the land under the ice. Hapgood overlaid it with U.S. Air Force charts from the 1940s, using seismic data to map the subglacial topography. The fit was startling. The map's rivers aligned with valleys like the Lambert Graben, now filled with ice. Hapgood posited that the original source maps dated to 4000 BCE or earlier, when Antarctica was navigable. He even suggested a pole shift, Earth's crust slipping over the mantle, moving the continent into the polar zone rapidly. Albert Einstein, no less, endorsed the idea in correspondence with Hapgood, noting the mathematical plausibility of crustal displacement caused by uneven ice loads. If the poles shifted 12,000 years ago during the Younger Dryas, a sudden cold snap that interrupted post-ice age warming, Antarctica could have frozen quickly, preserving its pre-ice geography in ancient maps passed down through Egypt, Greece, and the Arab world. Skeptics scoff. The Antarctica on Piri's map connects to South America, ignoring the Drake Passage. The mountains could be artistic license, and the accuracy. When rotated and stretched, anything fits. Geologists insist Antarctica's ice sheet formed 34 million years ago during the Eocene-Oligocene transition, when CO2 levels dropped and the continent isolated itself, triggering glaciation. Core samples from the ANDRILL project in 2007 show ice stable for at least 14 million years. No rapid freeze 12,000 years ago, that's recent in geological terms. Yet anomalies linger. Piri's map shows the Falkland Islands in South Georgia accurately, not charted until the 1590s. The projection centers on the Tropic of Cancer, suggesting Egyptian origins. A 2025 study in the Journal of Cartography, using AI to analyze ink and parchment, confirmed Piri's sources included pre-1500 charts, some with non-European notations. Now fast forward to 1531 Paris. Oronteus, a French mathematician and astronomer, publishes his Nova et Integre Universi Orbis Descriptio, a heart-shaped world map that's a feast for the eyes. Europe and Asia are detailed, the New World a rough sketch. But the southern continent, massive, labeled Terra Australis, shown with rivers, bays, and mountains encircling the globe. Finaeus notes it's recently discovered but not yet fully known. Overlay this with modern subglacial maps and jaws drop again. The continent's size is exaggerated, but features match. A peninsula like the Antarctic Peninsula, mountains where the Gamburtsevs lie buried under 2 miles of ice. Rivers flow where radar reveals ancient channels. Finaeus sources, likely the same Portuguese well as Piri's, perhaps Vatican libraries or French royal collections influenced by Renaissance rediscoveries. Hapgood championed Finaeus' map as evidence of pre-ice mapping, perhaps from 130,000 years ago during the Eemian interglacial, when sea levels were higher and Antarctica partially deglaciated. But recent ice cores from EPICA Dome C in 2004 show no full melt in that period. Still, a 2023 Nature study using satellite gravimetry found subglacial heat fluxes creating meltwater lakes, echoing the rivers on Finaeus' chart. Critics say Finaeus was theorizing. The southern land was a Renaissance staple, balancing the northern hemispheres. His map has Australia as part of Asia, errors galore. But a 1984 New York Times article reported geologist John Wyhop's analysis. The map's gulf matches the Ross Sea, suggesting ice-free knowledge. Enter Philippe Buech's 1737 map, a speculative gem. Buech, Louis XV's geographer, drew Carte des Terres Australes, showing Antarctica as 2 landmasses separated by a sea. East and West Antarctica divided by what we know as the Transantarctic Mountains. Buech based it on theory. Icebergs implied inland seas and symmetry demanded a balanced globe. Remarkably, modern geology confirms Antarctica's division. The west is lower, more volatile, the east a stable craton. Buech's sea aligns with the Wilkes subglacial basin, a depression that could become a sea if ice melts. Hapgood claimed Buech had ancient sources showing ice-free Antarctica, the sea, a melted cap. Buech admitted conjecture, drawing from reports of ice islands by explorers like Bouvet. But a 2025 ESA Cryosat study discovered 85 new subglacial lakes, some connected by channels, mirroring Buech's inland water. These maps collectively paint a picture of lost knowledge. 12,000 years ago, the Pleistocene ended, mammoths vanished, sea levels rose 400 feet. The Younger Dryas, from 12,900 to 11,700 years ago, saw temperatures drop 10 degrees in decades, perhaps from a comet impact or meltwater pulse shutting down ocean currents. If advanced societies existed, like Göbekli Tepe's 12,000-year-old temple in Turkey, they could have mapped coasts before floods. Legends support this. Plato's Atlantis sank 9,000 years before his time, around 11,600 years ago, a southern island empire with global reach. Maori myths speak of a southern land of giants. Aboriginal Australians recall a great flood. Scientific backing. Subglacial Lake Vostok's 2012 drilling found microbes evolved in isolation for 15 million years, but also pollen from temperate plants. A 2023 Nature Communications paper described a 20-mile relic landscape under the ice, with hills and valleys carved by rivers 34 million years ago, preserved like a time capsule. In 2025, with Antarctica losing 150 billion tons of ice annually, revelations accelerate. NASA's IceSat-2 and ESA's Cryosat map bedrock with laser precision, revealing canyons matching ancient map rivers. A July Phys.org article detailed ancient river landscapes influencing ice flow, suggesting dynamic history. Robots like Stone Aerospace's Endurance in 2024 explored Lake Bonny, finding geothermal vents that could sustain life under ice, hinting at refugia during freezes. If humans reached there 12,000 years ago, artifacts might await. Counter-arguments: maps are coincidences. Piri's Antarctica is distorted. South America, rivers imaginary. Pole shifts lack evidence. Earth's magnetic poles flip, but crustal displacement would cause global quakes unmatched in records. Yet the maps endure, portals to a warmer Antarctica. As climate change unveils more, perhaps we'll find proof, a sunken city, a lost chart. The frozen continent 12,000 years ago was alive, and its secrets are thawing.